we're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Nonprofit organizations would not operate well without a board of directors. And when forming a board of directors, there are several important things to consider. Among these, does the person understand the nonprofit's mission? Do they have a skill set that will help further the nonprofit? And don't forget a very important dynamic in board formation and management, diversity. What does that mean? And how do you find these candidates that are just the right fit? There's a new effort underway in Kansas City addressing the importance of diversity and inclusion and how to do it successfully. It's the Board Diversity Initiative. Created in collaboration with a subsidiary of Support KC, the Board Diversity Initiative is going to do great things in our community and even beyond. And we're so lucky today to have two of the guiding forces behind that. We have Nicole Jacobs Silvey. She's a DIA consultant and a former guest on KC Cares, and Blake Cleaver, who's Collective Impact Manager at Support KC. So welcome to both of you. This is an exciting thing to unwrap together.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for that warm welcome.
You bet. All right, well, Nicole, I know we started talking about this topic, oh my gosh, it could have been over a year ago, and the very beginning. So bring our audience up to speed. BDI, tell us about it. What is it? What's your mission, your goal?
Thank you so much, Ruth. I love being back. And you're right. It's even been a year that we've met talking about this. And really, before I even get to the what, I want to tell you the why behind the Board Diversity Initiative. And before I started my business that you mentioned, I was in the not-for-profit sector for about 20 years. That's hard to believe. And during that time, I hardly saw the landscape of the boards in our community change in terms of diversity. Often, if I was asked to serve on a board, I was one of the only people of color and typically one of the only women in some instances. And so what we did was we looked at some of the research behind it. That's my anecdotal lived experience. But what we found is Board Source says that's nationally the trend. Boards have hardly changed in 30 years, even though not-for-profit organizations have indicated it's a priority to have diversity on boards. So where was the gap? The comprehensive means or the action plan to make it happen. Whether there was an intention, there wasn't action. And so we wanted to build something that changed that landscape. And looking at all of the research and all of the study, we saw that we could really build something specific in our community that would meet the needs. But one of the things we want to look at, and one of our guiding principles, was not building for without. So meaning that we weren't going to build something that didn't engage the very communities that we wanted to benefit from this opportunity. So the why for board diversity. There have been studies to Board Source that says that when we have diverse boards, we reach our goals faster and we make our missions go further. So if it isn't just your moral imperative that you think having diverse voices, and when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about racial diversity, but we're talking about people from different genders, different socioeconomic, different sexual orientation, the LGBTQ community. We're talking about faith traditions. We're talking about diversity in all senses of the word, knowing that when we bring diverse perspectives to the table, that's where innovation and change occurs. So that's a little bit more about what the actual Board Diversity Initiative, BDI, is.
My bad. Blake, how and why did you get pulled into all this effort?
Yeah, so Support Kansas City has been working on creating BDI for over 4 years now, and Nicole was brought into the initiative early on, so she has helped build out from the very beginning days and has been hugely impactful in that work. So I did not get pulled into this work until probably after the first year. And at that point, I was just pulled in to kind of help with administrative pieces. We had a group of thought leaders that were working together to kind of build the idea and really talk about where this was going. And I was just there to offer support. As it developed, I really gained an interest in this work and really showed that interest and was asked to step in to help even create some of the curriculum and build out some of the structure. And eventually that grew into me assisting Nicole with facilitating our pilot, which was an amazing experience. And so I've really, been working with SKC, obviously my role with Support Kansas City through this whole process, but I came in later with building out the curriculum and the structure. And then I also work as a facilitator now.
Well, I think for our audience, in all fairness, give us a quick definition of Support KC and your role there, in addition now to the Board Diversity Initiative.
Of course. So Support Kansas City, we're a nonprofit organization, and we provide back office support services for other nonprofits in Kansas and Missouri. I would say the bulk of what we do is around accounting support, but we have a wide variety of services that we provide. We have database services, we do governance, strategic planning, we do governance. What else do we do? I'm trying to think. Database governance. Just a wide variety, but a lot of it is accounting. Really anything a nonprofit could need, we provide that support service for them. And my role with Support Kansas City is the community impact manager. And so with Support Kansas City, I really work with our prospective clients, our incoming clients, walking them through the pipeline process, providing proposals for them, and kind of seeing them through that process until they become clients.
So a great person to work on curriculum and step by step. How lucky. I want to go back to you, Nicole, for a moment. So coming to Support KC and helping further this thing that started 4 years ago, what has like the last year been like to really codify what BDI is and how it works?
What an awesome question. And really, in the last year, we couldn't have slow to go fast. We found that it wasn't a one-stop shop, that a multi-tiered approach was really going to yield the comprehensive change that we wanted, the systemic change, and have a comprehensive approach rather. And so where we started was trying to build, I was brought in to help build a candidacy, that there was this idea that a pipeline of candidates from diverse backgrounds was what was most crucial. And while that is a very key component, what we really landed on and what was the basis of this work was that it's the board on boards. So people hear that at first and think, I'm not quite sure what that means. What we thought was that boards need to be prepared to recruit and retain individuals from diverse identities. As I had experienced, my first board experience, I was excited, eager, I was happy to be asked, and I joined a board, but after my term was done, I rolled off. And people often wonder, why does that happen with people from diverse identities? But my voice wasn't really heard. People were pleasant, but I wasn't engaged. I didn't limited amount of volunteer time. I wanted to be in a space where I really felt like that I could have value and I could impact change. I think that's where most people do want, regardless of your background. So we said we want boards to be able to have shared power, that when those individuals get recruited to boards, how are we engaging them in really intentional and purposeful ways so we can meet them where they are? How can we help them, let them benefit our organization? So that's where we did the bulk of our work. And then we said, what about the senior leader of these organizations? And they are often trying to leverage and do advancements in diversity, but there may be some opposition or some staggering and some hesitation. So how do we help support them? So I'm going to let Blake go ahead and share the exact curriculum, because it's a three-pronged approach. So when I think we talked last, Ruth, we're on stage one, we've added 2 other stages or steps in the process, so and engaging different audiences so that we can have a greater impact and sustained message.
So as Nicole mentioned, that's kind of how it grew into a 4-year project. Was we kept thinking, well, we need to add this piece and we need to add this piece, and have we thought about this? And it just grew into this 3-track approach, which I really think is all encompassing and is going to be really beneficial for the organization, the senior leader, and then also the potential candidates. And that's really what the 3 tracks are. I can share that if you'd like, but It's the executive leader piece, the board track, and then the candidate track. The board track is really working with the boards to, like Nicole mentioned, really change their structure and their board culture to be welcoming and inclusive and inviting of a diverse candidate. Taking a look at their policies and procedures and through an equity lens and understanding what an equity lens is. It's, having a shared understanding of language and terminology. We work with these boards over the course of 1 year, 12 months, and it starts with a half-day retreat. And then the rest of the sessions are about 2 hours each, and we do those quarterly. So we're working with this board for a year. And then in addition to that, we're working with their executive leader, because what we found through the pilot organization is that these boards are having, tough conversations at times.
Right.
And, the senior leader is really the connecting point between the BDI team and the board. And so we want to make sure that that person feels supported in this work. They understand, who to go to if they have questions or how to answer their board's questions, or really just, knowing that they have support behind them as their board goes through this. And so what that looks like is it's actually a round table of other nonprofit leaders whose boards are also going through this training. So the boards go through the training individually. The executive leaders have the opportunity to sit in a roundtable discussion with other executive leaders led by a BDI team member who is a leader in the space, who has been an executive leader, understands, the role that these individuals are in, and also has the DEI background so they can speak to that part as well. So that's the organization and executive leader track. And then we have the candidate track. And that's really working with candidates to help them understand, what is board service? What does that look like? What are you going to be asked to do? And really what we thought about when we were thinking about the candidate track is, these individuals, while they have all of the skills and could be a great asset for any board, they might not have ever thought about serving on a board. They've never been asked, or maybe they don't think that they have the skills. And part of that is really just, not understanding how nonprofits work, or how a board works, or how to read a management report, or, what is the time expectancy of serving on a board. So it's really just providing them with those tools and resources, addressing maybe imposter syndrome, and then also just helping them feel confident with understanding what the right fit might be for them. We don't want them just to accept a position because they've been asked, but to really think through what they would want out of board service and how to make that decision.
So now I have all the follow-up questions. Nicole, how do nonprofits connect with the program? And is this considered the pilot year since you've rolled it out?
The great question. Last year was our pilot year, and really Blake and I learned a lot. Where we thought we were, we dismantled and kind of rebuilt it. Because what we build, we want to be feasible and palatable for those not-for-profit organizations. We recognize this work isn't done in isolation. There's also governance that needs to be done. And so we have done the pilot. What we're going to be doing, and what we've launched, actually, the website is the letter B, diverse.org. And there's opportunities to fill out an intake form to say that you have interest, and then we would follow up. And there's 3 different things that you can do on the website, actually. You can also show intake, do the intake form to be a candidate, potential candidate, to be a potential board, which then also includes the executive director, and then also an area if you want to be a facilitator. Blake and I are the initial facilitation team, but we are doing a train the trainer where we're going to ramp up and get other individuals from the community that represent community members to be co-facilitators in this work, because we want this to be sustained work. We've been so fortunate that we have some initial funders, and they've been the Kauffman Foundation. Kansas Health Foundation is our premier sponsor and funder. And then also we have Hall Family Foundation. So we're going to continue to leverage those dollars. We've had some great initial response to this work, because it's something, as I mentioned, I hate to date myself, but it's been some years since my first board seat. But the same things we talked about then, we're talking about now. So I think it is that those who are doing the work of not-for-profit executives, adding this on seems like another something, and it needed an intentional focus and comprehensive approach to get it done, and something that's a little bit plug and play. And so we want to offer the ease and facilitation of people being able to engage right where they are.
So nonprofits go and fill out in the intake, and then a decision will be made. When will that decision be made? How quickly, once, let's say you go in and you put in nonprofit P wants to be part of this?
Yes, within a month's time, I would say. We've had an influx and we're trying to scale up, which is a great problem to have when you have several people. But what we want to do is look intentionally to see where the organization is. And most organizations are going to qualify, but we said those that may be startup not-for-profits or only have one, they have to have at least one paid staff person and have a board of directors that's been in existence for a year. They're going to best benefit from this process. If there's other individuals who want board support but may not be the right fit for BDI at this time based on their level of development, we're still here to offer support. Another thing that I really love, Blake did such a great job outlining the whole initiative, is that we have an online curriculum so that an individual who goes through the BDI, whether as a part of a board, you're a board member, or you're an individual for the candidate track, you have access to this platform that the wonderful Cass Butler Dunlap created for us. So all of the material on there. If you're like me and you've been to a conference and you have a lovely notebook or something that's on your shelf and you say, oh, where was that great idea? We want it to be the one-stop shop that has resources from everything like the gurus that I always mention, Board Source, in addition to activities that we've created and slides that they go through during each of the sessions. So there'll be that to help sustain the message and be kind of a blueprint and some guidelines for people to follow.
We're talking with Nicole Silvey and Blake Cleaver. They're running long and hard with the board diversity initiative. Pardon me. Blake, what about for the candidates, people who want to serve on a nonprofit board, or I don't know, maybe it's even for a tune-up? And where do you choose those, and how does that process work?
So we're hoping that, they will hear about us and go to our website and complete the interest form. We got, as Nicole mentioned, we got a lot of interest from our launch, which we're grateful for. But we're not stopping there. We're going into communities. We're having the same conversation. We're hoping to, speak with those potential candidates directly within their communities in different spaces all over Kansas City. So that's something that we've been really intentional about following our launch, is scheduling these events to have the same talk so that we can, identify those individuals and those communities and, get interests and help support them through this process as well.
So you get folks in this pipeline, you're beyond the pilots, really the first year, you're going to town. Do I get charged if I'm in this program? How does that side of things work? Because Nicole, you did mention your funders. So is it a pay to play, so to speak, Nicole?
That's an excellent question. What we want is to have the lowest barrier for access, and we want the candidates to have opportunities to engage either in a free setting or if they're within their own company. Like if a company brings us in to work with an affinity group, we would charge them the company rather than the individuals. So we're working on that piece with some additional funders. Then the board piece, we're going to do a sliding scale because we know that some nonprofit organizations have $2 million budgets and then others have $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the budget of the organization, and we're continuing to engage funders so that we can sustain that. We just really want to keep that cost low. We think there's opportunities also to talk with foundations that if they're gifting an organization a grant in one area, that they may be able to give a supplemental gift so that they can engage in the BDI. So we're continuing those conversations, and we're grateful for the initial funding that we've had, but we will talk to each executive director as we have those conversations as they do the intake at this point through this first year.
Blake, what was it like to put this together? Did you hit challenges, and how did you kind of mitigate or migrate through those?
Yes, absolutely. One of the challenges that we experienced, I think, as everyone experienced, was COVID-19 threw a huge wrench in Support Kansas City's operations. I think everyone's operations. We moved locations in that time period. We went remote in that time period. Our staff had never been remote before. So, and then it threw a wrench in everything, of course, as everyone knows. So that was part of our struggles. And another part of our struggles was following the George Floyd tragedy. We had our thought leaders are amazing individuals in this DEI space who were being asked to engage with other organizations. So they had other opportunities, other responsibilities come up following that incident that kind of took precedence over what we were doing with BDI. Mm-hmm. So that was another challenge that we experienced, is because we have some really great people working on this initiative. They have a lot of responsibilities. They're being pulled in a lot of different directions. So in addition to us deciding we need to add this and we need to add that, we also had time commitment constraints and, just a lot of different timing constraints, but we were able to, get a core group of people together that could devote the time and the energy to it and really, have our focus. Once we nailed down the 3 tracks, I think we were ready to run with it. So that was really when things took off.
Nicole, in some circles, I think, diversity, equity, and inclusion has now kind of become this very political. Let's leave it at that. So as you have now launched this, how are you trying to dance in the village with that being out there?
That's so well said, Ruth. I like how you said politicized. And we didn't know what was going to happen at the launch, if I'm being honest. And it was sold out. And the room was full, and there was energy, and there was excitement, and there in all areas. And I was pleasantly surprised because we do hear this other voice. And what I'm seeing in the community and the spaces that I'm in is that people have a deep commitment to this work. And when there's pushback, they want to know the why, like how is this really going to impact and affect our organizations? And I remind folks that most nonprofits, almost all of them, are stepping in the gap for some member of community or some section of community. And often it's based on some areas related to systemic oppression, almost always when you whittle down. So at the very core of most of the work we do is DEI work. And so when I say that and say that it's not dissimilar to what you're already doing, it's just enhancing and furthering the work that you're doing. Most people see it. I think it's a lack of knowledge of what DEI really is. We say DEI as it's a word instead of the actual acronym. When people break it down and we talk about in different backgrounds, when you say it like that or getting different perspectives, people usually don't push back on that. It's the idea of what we've come to think DEI as making it like a word instead of an acronym means that helps keep us stuck, stagnant, fearful, and polarized. I believe in crucial conversations. I believe in leading with curiosity. I believe when you're in space with people that are different than yourself, you have more aha moments and you learn more and you have more synergy than where people are in opposition to DEI. I ask questions to find out where they're coming from. And often we're closer aligned than not. And I just show that the work that we're doing is not in opposition to the work of their organization's mission. It does help that funders are saying that they look at boards to see if they're diverse. That is a real great catalyst as well. And so far in our community, we have not seen that the BDI has received this pushback. Instead, more organizations want to engage in it than we have capacity initially, but we're building that capacity. So great problem to have.
You mentioned that is a good problem to have, but I could see where you may get a little frustrated too because you're ready to go out of the gate and you'd like to be able to do all of it right away. So is that causing you any kind of angst or sleepless nights?
For me, it is. I don't know how Blake feels, but it is for me in this way. I had a sense of urgency when this was just an idea. right? And then George Floyd happened. And then there's been a sense of urgency in so long because I don't want my son to potentially be in the not-for-profit sector, and he's in middle school now, and someday he's an adult and it looks similar to now. That's unacceptable to me, because that means we've left voices that we have not heard, and that means the impact has not been there, and we're losing out on innovation to move our communities along, and that's not acceptable to me. So what I've done is just said foot on the gas. I know there's some times where I feel like I have less gas than others, but foot on the gas. Wonderful people like Blake. The partnership that I've had with her has been exceptional. Her thought leadership and the other champions that have been part of this position and this opportunity, as well as, David Oliver, our friend, Dave Smith, Gabby Flores, they're part of the tech assistance team, as well as Cass Butler Dunlap. And then, of course, Jenny Vandebout, who is the definition of an inclusive leader, being the executive director who stood behind this for 4 years. Most people would have, after 4 months, start to fatigue, but she stood just consistent. And I think that's what's going to make the difference. We live in a very philanthropic community. We're proud of our not-for-profits in Kansas City. And what we said was, we're not going to ask the same folks that we always ask to serve on boards. We're great for over the years. But what about the collection of people that have never been asked, but they represent the community? That's who we're targeting. We feel like there's this broad scope of individuals that haven't been tapped and have a lot to give. And so that's what we're really looking forward to. And we hope when we come back, if you so invite us back in a year or two, that we are going to be able to show the impact of our work. I'd love for Blake to share. We have a partner with Midwest Center for Nonprofit Leadership, and they've been the backbone of much of what we've been doing as well.
Yes. So Ginny asked Britt Never with the Midwest Center if they could do some local research for us to kind of assess, we have the national research, we know what Board Source has to say, but we wanted to evaluate our local sector and see if that matched what we knew to be true of the national research. And I don't have exact figures. I wish I did. The Midwest Center does a much better job at talking to the numbers than I ever could. But what we found was that it is very similar to the national research. Our local sector has not moved forward in the ways that we would like to see it. And while, we do see a lot of emphasis in this area, a lot of organizations are saying they want to diversify their boards. They want to see, more diverse candidates on their boards. They just haven't started that process. They haven't, maybe had an idea of how to start or really, a route to go. So we're hoping to, again, fill that space. So it really just, I think, validated the work that we've already started, but we're also hoping to use this research as a measure of our success. We're hoping that in a few years, we'll see that our local sector is improving in board diversity as a result of the work that we're doing, and of course that others are doing in this area as well.
Well, you're giving the community a framework and a guidebook by virtue of all of this, and it's amazing. And I love when in the beginning, Nicole, you had said diversity means a lot of things, and I'm glad you articulated that it isn't just the color of your skin. There are many things that make us diverse, but the commonality is we all want to help in the nonprofit sector. And how do we do that better? So kudos to you all for getting through what the challenges have been and moving it forward. And we appreciate you sharing it. Folks, if you want to know more about their efforts and how to be part of it, interested in learning more, it's bediverse.org, right?
Right.
Thanks to both of you. We appreciate you coming on Casey Cares and sharing this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for Casey Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, which is also a nonprofit. This Casey Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. And if you'd like to be a guest on Casey Cares or underwriting opportunities, you can visit our website, which is caseycaresonline.org. Spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at Casey Cares Radio and Instagram at Casey Cares Online. And don't forget, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., you can catch us on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on Casey.